and TalkPics.com. I'm Rob Kruger, and this is episode 77 with Kathleen Clemons, a photography instructor.
I get all these ideas and I write notes. Oh, I have to blog about that. And then life happens and it just doesn't happen.
Today's featured guest is Kathleen Clemons. Kathleen, are you ready to share with Photo World today?
I am.
Awesome. Kathleen is a photographer based out of Harpswell, Maine. She's represented worldwide by Corbis and Getty Images. Lensbaby.com has named her a Lensbaby Guru and describes her as the Georgia O'Keeffe of flower photography. Kathleen is a photography instructor at the Bryan Peterson School of Photography, where she teaches 5 online classes. She is also an instructor for the Santa Fe Photographic Workshops and CreativeLive.com. Kathleen, welcome to Take and Talk Pics.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I've shared a little bit about you and some of your accomplishments, but can you introduce yourself further to Photo World and let us know who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Kathleen Clemons. I have lived in Maine my entire life, live right on the coast of Maine, and I'm primarily known for my nature photos, and I'm also a natural light photographer. I don't use any artificial light. Flash scares me. I like to see the light on my subject, and I'm also a photography instructor, and one of my greatest joys is combining my love for teaching with my passion for photography.
Yeah, and being a natural light photographer really comes in handy with teaching, because most people wanting to learn, they don't jump right into flash first thing, so they're all about what's available as far as light and what can they do with that. So it's really helpful that you have those two kind of working together for you.
Definitely.
So when we're kind of going through just our progression of doing photography and even teaching, just these different passions we have, there's some sort of inspiration that keeps us going. It could be just the love of the camera, but do you have kind of a quote or a mantra that you live by, keeping you inspired?
As far as I'm concerned, it's just shoot what you love. If you love your subject and you embrace it and study it, your images are going to be stronger because you will show up in your images. So that's what I'm thinking, all the time. I'm just seeing and inspired by everything I see and really trying to put myself in the photos. And I think that's a good advice for people, is to shoot a lot of different things, find out what you love, what makes your heart sing, and then focus on that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you just browse through Flickr or 500px, you're going to see tons and tons of pictures from pretty amazing photographers who wouldn't say that they're photographers or even in business for it. And it's just kind of following that passion and producing great work because of it. So that's a good way to kind of approach it. And if you're interested in doing it as a hobby, that's probably the most natural way to do it. If you're interested in doing it as a business, don't forget about that photo world. I mean, it's really important to remember why you got into this. And speaking of why we get into this kind of stuff, can you remember what kind of sparked your interest enough to pick up a camera and kind of pursue it?
I can. I actually started shooting by taking sunrise photos on my front lawn. I live right on the coast of Maine. My husband is a lobsterman and would get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'd get up with him. And then I had a little bit of time before my kids woke up, and I happened to have a really beautiful view of the world's only cribstone bridge that connects Orrs and Bailey Islands. And started opening the curtains and looking at that amazing light and running out there with my camera. I had one camera, one lens. And in the beginning, I had a digital camera that took floppy disks. That's around the time I got started. But, I'd run outside, often with my bathrobe, throw some shoes on, run outside and take photos of the sunrise. And it actually taught me a great deal. It taught me about the quality of light and how quickly it changes. And that's sort of how I got my start.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, just seeing it and chasing it, chasing that light. That's beautiful. And yeah, the floppy disk. Oh, I hope some people in photo world out there still understand what that means. I grew up with floppy disks on, a computer and everything. I didn't shoot with them. I just went from film to CF cards, I think, is where I jumped. But yeah, that's some classic digital there. So when we're playing around, you're learning and starting to pursue it and finding you have an interest in it. There are things you tried and they worked out. There are other things you tried and it didn't. Can you recall a time where, in a learning experience or a failure moment where you kind of learned the hard way on something?
I think that has happened every time I've seen something amazing and didn't have my camera with me. You know, that's a big lesson that I learned, to have a camera with me all the time. And actually, I'm shooting a lot with my iPhone now, so it's not as much of an issue because I do always have a camera with me. But, you know, there have been times I've just been driving home and seen something, and I can't turn that off wherever I am. I see photos everywhere. And not having a camera with me when I see something amazing teaches me to take one with me the next time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can recount so many times where I'd see this beautiful sky or just some sort of sunset happening, and I'm like, man, I wish I had my camera. I should, get a picture of that. And my thought, horribly back when I was doing that was, there'll be another one kind of like that I'll see. And that's not true. Things change constantly. And I mean, you're not going to have a repetition of that same thing. It's going to be a little different. You're going to see it a little differently. And I think for like one of the first few times, it's only been this year that I've really started feeling like I'm going to bring a camera everywhere I go, aside from my phone. And not too long, a couple of weeks, I'm driving home and I'm feeling like I'm a little late for something. And I see this tree just sitting out in this field. And I was like, I got to go do that. So I was like, I'm going to be late and I don't care because I need this picture. So I did it, and I'm glad I did. It's just you have to be prepared. It's that Boy Scout mentality. Always be prepared, right?
Exactly.
And with the phone, I remember a time when I photographed something with my phone, and I kind of complained about it when I posted it on Facebook, and I was like, I wish I had a real camera. And somebody said to me, the best camera is the one you have, which is so true. So with your cell phone and mobile photography, that's a good thing to remember that you do have a camera with you. At least there's an attempt for it with that device.
Exactly. And what I tell my students is if you're shooting with your phone, it's taken a lot of the technical factors out, but you can really concentrate on composition. So, you're composing a photo every time, no matter what you're shooting with. So I think it can really help your compositional skills and give you extra practice. If you shoot with your phone, you're not going to be able to control aperture, and you're limited with a lot of things, but you can still compose. You can still choose what to add in that composition and what to leave out. And that's going to make you a stronger photographer because it's going to give you more practice.
Very good. And seriously, I teach at the College of DuPage here in Illinois. Could I borrow that from my students? Because I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
We're just about to dive into compositional elements and everything, and I think the next assignment is going to be like, let's do this on your phone just to really break it down for you. So that'll be
excellent.
Awesome. So, hey, Photo World, I hope you're inspired. I sure as heck am, so I enjoy this so much. So when we're going through our process of taking pictures and composing and just, there's a starting point, there's an ending point on an image. Can you pull out what you would consider to be the most important practice to your photography, one piece of information that always is there in your workflow?
Definitely, and that's to work your subjects. I mean, no matter what you shoot, you wouldn't go to the Grand Canyon and take only one photo. Well, I feel that way with every image that I take, and I'll often just put my camera down in the beginning and really look at my subject. If I haven't looked at my subject, say a flower, from every angle possible, how do I choose the correct one? How do I choose the one that's going to capture the essence of my subject? So working my subjects and really, really learning to see is the most important part for me.
Super important. And I kind of break it down to a 3-step process of you go into an image knowing what you know about photography. Click. You now see what you have in front of you. Click. And now you can change things from what you know and what you've seen to create an image. And it's that third picture that's going to be a lot better than those first two. So like you said, you got to work your way into it. Even though you know what you're doing, even though you've done this kind of stuff before, you got to work your way into every scene. It's genius.
Exactly.
So when we're kind of going through the progress of learning photography and trying to get better at it, can you recommend something that would really improve a photographer's skill and really boost their growth as a photographer?
Well, that would be to experiment with a lot of different subjects. You're not going to learn what makes your heart sing if you shoot the same thing every day. You really need to experiment. Try macro, try landscape, try portraits, which I know scares a lot of people. But, until you are trying a lot of different types of photography, how are you going to know what your thing is? I mean, I certainly did not expect to be a flower photographer, but it's happened, and I love photographing flowers, and I think that makes my images stronger.
Yeah, I mean, you have to experiment to find out what you really like, what you really are passionate about. I didn't know that I liked portraiture. In fact, despised it at first. I thought becoming a wedding photographer or something was like you failed and you had to settle on that. And that's not the case. I mean, I started with nature and macro and just anything I could find that wasn't going to talk back to me, and I could set up the scene best I could. And it was just easier that way, so I thought. Now looking back, it's like, nature's so difficult to photograph well. It's easy to photograph, but it's difficult to photograph well. And you have to really understand your gear and understand light and composition to really make that sing, because it's been done before by somebody else. You just got to do it in your own way. And once I got into portraiture, then I started realizing this was my calling, photographically at least. And it led me to weddings, and I'm happy now. I can ride with that for a while. So work on it. It's just like I teach at a community college. You got to take more than one class to understand what you're doing. You have to try a few different things. It's so hard to just make a decision and say yes and go with it and think that's going to work. It's too hard that way.
Right. You also need to learn your equipment.
Oh yeah.
That's huge, and it's I think caught up in a new lens. I started off with one lens, and that's all I had for a year. Mm-hmm. That made me compose with my feet. I had to move. And it taught me a lot. I couldn't just switch lenses, so I had to really work harder. And I think you need to learn every lens that you own. If you want to be a macro photographer, you need to learn what the minimum focus distance is of every lens. You need to learn with a particular lens, what does f4 look like? If I get closer, what does f4 look like? Really learn what every lens is like at every aperture, how close you can get. Learn your equipment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell my students, read your manual of your camera, because there are features in there you didn't even know about. And it's so hard to sit down and read a manual, I'll tell you. But read through it until you have a question. Then go through the manual and look up the answer to that question you have through the information you can find. Read until you have a question, then flip on back to wherever it leads you. It kind of gives you a nice little thinking process to understand and start grasping the information in there. And like you said with a lens, I don't know if it's laziness or just a good thing to do. When I do like an engagement shoot, I'll kind of dial it down to 1 or 2 lenses, and I'm like, okay, I'm stuck with that. I got to do what I got to do with that. Yeah. Instead of bringing everything. And I feel like I get some of the most successful pictures on those shoots because I'm forced to really work out the differences between shooting on a 50 millimeter only than having my 24-70, So it really helps to experiment and play. Because really, especially before you start getting into it as a career photo world, go play, go make some mistakes, and then you figure it out even better. So when we're going through this stuff and we're learning our equipment and we're starting to find where our stride is and experimenting with different things, we kind of have these different moments that really click for us. And I kind of refer to them as the aha moments during a career, during a progression as a photographer. Can you kind of recall a time? I don't think there's just one of them, but there are many. Can you recall one for us of an aha moment where something just clicked, the light went off, and you started changing things, and it was so much better after that?
Oh, definitely. I started off with an online class taught by Bryan Peterson, who's now my boss at the Bryan Peterson School of Photography. I took his understanding exposure because, frankly, I did not understand exposure. It seemed like algebra to me, and I'm a non-math student, so I just didn't get it. I can compose. I just didn't get it. So anyway, I took his understanding exposure class, and when he started to explain aperture and shallow depth of field, and I realized that I could control exactly where your eye went in a photo. I could say, hey, look over here, don't look over there. It was a huge aha moment for me, and it's still my very favorite way to shoot, selective focus. I like to dance on the edge of seeing just how little I can get away with having in focus. And it's why I love Lensbaby so much. So yeah, that was huge for me, was really understanding aperture.
Right. Just getting that one thing that really clicks for you in the learning experience. And with Bryan Peterson, Photo World, if you remember, we had him on the show not too long ago, and I went to the Out of Chicago Photography Conference, and I got to meet him in person after already having him on the show. He's a great guy. He's got a lot of resources, the online school, a lot of different books, and he's really broken it down to a very simplified rhythm of just learning one piece at a time, and then you can compile that into great information about your gear. That can help the learning process. I think school is super important because it's really dedicated information in specific areas. When we're going through this stuff, and aside from the aha moments, we have these I made it moments where we feel a little validated for what we've been doing. And maybe for you it was when you were being published by Getty Images or something of that nature. Can you recall a time where you had an I made it moment where you felt a little bit successful in one area?
Yeah, there have been quite a few. being accepted with Corbis and Getty were huge. Bryan asking me to come and teach for him at his photo school was a huge moment for me. And most recently, teaching for Creative Live was huge for me. And a challenge. I'd never taught to a camera before, and I loved it. And it was a fabulous experience and a big moment for me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's all it is just the compilation of things of I'm doing what I love, and then it starts leading you down these paths of, can you share that with others? Can you start teaching? Can you bring that to the surface for other people who have questions about it? It's awesome. And I mean, that's the whole purpose behind this podcast was just, I'm not the best expert in every field of photography, or not even my own of wedding photography, but I got some information and I can connect people to other photographers who are experts. And I think it's a great resource. It's just another avenue of learning aside from YouTube or attending seminars. And I think it's really helpful for the community to see that most of us aren't just in it for ourselves. It's kind of a community-driven field, even though sometimes we feel a little restricted on giving out our information or sharing with everybody for no reason. So it's a fun time. So during your career so far, can you recall the best advice that you've ever received?
Yeah. I was showing my images probably maybe the second year that I've been shooting to a pro photographer that I know, and some of them were portraits, and I prefaced showing them to him as well. I don't do portraits. He looked at me and said, "If you can shoot, you can shoot." And that's been huge for me, because I think if you limit yourself and you say, no, I can't do that, then you can't. But, you have to try. And I can shoot portraits. I can shoot a lot of things, and then it becomes a choice of what you want to shoot. Mm-hmm. You're not putting a limit out saying, I can't do that. I can't do landscapes. I can't do street photography. You can do anything you want. So that was pretty big for me. And I never forgot it.
Yeah, it's kind of like with students, they'll give you this little footnote to their work and telling you, well, the light was like this, or this was going on, or I couldn't get in that position. It's like, just please don't talk. Let me see what you did. Let me see what you did accomplish. Yeah. And I'll tell you what could be worked on or what is successful, because maybe you don't see the good in this and you're just trying to brace me for what I might think is bad. Because I wasn't there. Right. I didn't know the situation. I didn't know the light at the time. I just get to see what you produce. So give me a second and let me, acknowledge that. I just think it's so ridiculous when people do that and they set you up to brace yourself. This is going to be awful. It's like, no, it's not. We're the hardest critics on ourselves. So, just be prepared to learn, and critiques are important. So be prepared to get honest feedback if you're asking for a critique or you're a part of one. But for the most part, just do what you do and then keep doing it.
Yeah.
So if you had to start over, it's not just maybe seeing the sunrise and you run outside to get that shot, but if you had to start over, knowing what you know now, what would you do to begin your photography path?
Well, when I was in high school, photography wasn't offered. That's how old I am. So I would have started sooner. I didn't start photography and get serious about it until I was in my 40s. And, I would have been doing that early on. And I went to college for education, and that's been fabulous. But I would have also pursued photography. I've always been artsy. I can draw, I can paint, but I had never found my niche in art. And I think taking a photography class early on, and I would have loved to have learned more about film and about darkroom work and all that. So I definitely would have pursued it sooner.
Yeah, and you say you can draw and you can paint. These are things I cannot do. That's why I take pictures, because I can't produce it any other way. And, do you ever mix the media at all, doing any painting with your photography? Because some of your floral work kind of has a very painterly feel.
No, I actually don't. I mean, I love digital darkroom work, and I enjoy learning about that. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. You don't want to limit yourself to just straight out of the camera.
Right.
I mean, it's art. It's okay to play. There are no rules. The photo police aren't going to stop by and say, "Oh my God, you altered that photo." Do what you want. It's okay to play, is what I tell my students. Take an image and then make it your own. I sort of think of my photography, my rule of thirds, because I'm not big on rules in photography, but my rule of thirds is sort of your first third is your what you see, it's the subject. The second is your vision for that subject and the gear you choose to take it. And that third piece is the post processing. What are you going to do to it afterwards? Some of my Lensbaby work needs absolutely nothing. It's straight out of camera. But a lot of other images I like to play. I'll add a texture background or make some changes, combine photos. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's, like you said, there's no real rules. There's no photo police. I love that. And
Yeah.
you're not going to get in trouble. And really, experimenting like that is going to teach you what you like, what you don't like. And if it's successful in your own mind or in the community that you're sharing with, you're going to find out very quickly what you're more interested in based on feedback and accomplishments. So Photo World, experiment, play. Kathleen's giving you a total release on that. I like your rule of thirds. It's pretty smart to break up the process rather than the composition into a rule of thirds kind of style. So that's pretty brilliant. But when we're working through things, we're playing around, we find these tools, like we were talking about mobile photography a little bit ago. And with this mobile stuff, there's so many options. Do you have an app or an internet resource that you think Photo World could benefit from knowing about?
Yes, Lensbaby makes mobile lenses now. So
Ooh.
I can have a Lensbaby with me all the time. And it's just, so I can do a selective focus on my phone. And as I said, that's my favorite way to shoot. So there are 3 different lenses that they have right now. My favorite is the LM20. It just came out, and the LM10 is very similar, except the LM20 has a larger sweet spot of focus, and Lensbaby people know what I'm talking about. Lensbaby creates a sweet spot of focus that you can move to different areas of the image. So I can do that with my phone now, which is really just fabulous. So I have that with me all the time.
That is wild and awesome. I've never actually shot with a Lensbaby. I've always been interested, and I probably should have did it when they first came out because it was a lot cheaper then. But it's like you can do some interesting things, and I see people doing it with portrait work. I see people doing it with landscapes and product photography. You can really get away with a lot in different genres with a Lensbaby because it's just such an interesting approach to composition.
Right.
And now that it's mobile, it's going to blow up. That's huge. That's insane.
Yeah.
And are they specifically like iPhone, or do they cover all platforms at this time?
Well, no, they make them for different ones. You just have to specify when you order it what your platform is.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome to be able to have that with you all the time.
And Photo World, this is not the first time we've talked, like a lens attachment for your phone to make it happen. I mean, mobile photography has been on the rise and is, I think, spiking now, really going up. So, you can get on board and be a part of it, or you can keep fighting it like some of the more classical pros out there that think it's not going to do us any good because the sensor's too small or whatever. It's like we're not concerned about that anymore. Micro Four Thirds is a pretty tiny sensor, but mirrorless is on the fly. So it's an interesting world we live in now with the quickness to photography, and then you can share it so fast too.
Right. And there are stock agencies now that specialize in just mobile images. I mean, you can sell these.
Right.
You don't just have to keep them for yourself. And also, you're doing something creative every day. I joined Instagram and started in January a 365 project. I only shoot with my phone for Instagram, and I either take a photo every day or I process a photo every day. So, if I don't have time, that's okay. I've taken extras, but I'll go in and process a photo every day and upload it. And I have not missed a day since January 1st. So I'm doing something creative every single day, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I'll grab a few shots, grab my phone, take a walk outside, throw my Lensbaby on it, shoot flowers, my cat, even anything, just to shoot, a beautiful sky, some beautiful light, or I'll go through and 10 o'clock at night, I'll be saying to my husband, oh my God, I haven't Instagrammed yet. And I'll go through and quickly process a photo and put it up. But follow me, I'm at Kathleen Clemons. And if you tag your images 365 KC, I'll see what you're posting every day. So it's fun.
Yeah, nice. Photo World, start, tagging and getting a part of that so she can keep an eye on what you guys are doing and producing. I love the 365 project ideas. I've seen this from other people. I just don't think I have the capacity to keep up on that. That's insane. I mean, it's already halfway through September and you're flying on this. I mean, you're going to do fine here. So maybe I should make that my challenge for next year instead of another diet that I'll fail. So I think that's a better
Way
idea.
better.
Very nice. So when we're looking back of where we get our inspiration and how we start, have you kind of done any research on photographers that really inspired you in your earlier days of photography?
I get inspiration from all the arts, not just photography.
Hmm.
Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings make me weak in the knees. I love Freeman Patterson's impressionistic photos. I love Sue Bryce's portraits. I love the way Bryan Peterson sees color. He's amazing with that. Cole Thompson's black and whites are fabulous. But other types of art too inspire me.
Yeah, I'm like, really, you can get a lot of inspiration from other genres. Painting, drawing, what is it, engravings and sculpture. Like, I dreaded the fact that I had to do all these other art classes when I was in school for my photography degree, right? And I'm like, I can't sculpt, I can't paint, I can't draw. And I didn't like it at the time. But looking back, I really appreciate having the, vast knowledge introduced to me because it opened up my eyes to other things I could implement, other ideas I can pull from for my photography. So don't be afraid of other things you might not be comfortable with, photo world. You can still get inspiration elsewhere. So it's totally worth investigating.
Definitely.
And when we're talking about our gear and just kind of getting out and doing stuff, we have the go-to things we want to keep in our bag or with us if we have the opportunity. Aside from a camera body, because we definitely need that, is there one piece of gear that you could just not live without?
Yeah, it would be a Lensbaby. People ask me what my favorite Lensbaby is, and to be perfectly honest, it's whichever one is on my camera at the time. The new Velvet 56 is a fabulous lens. You can go from a really soft, dreamy look to a lot of definition just with an aperture change. I love the selective focus lineup of Lensbabies. A soft focus optic is amazing, but finding Lensbaby really changed my life as a photographer, and I think it made me a better photographer because selective focus makes you slow down.
Oh, yeah.
You have to really look at your subject and decide what's the most important, what's the essence of this subject and how are you going to capture it? How much needs to be in focus? What else needs to be included in the frame? Because you're responsible for everything that is in every frame. I don't want to hear any excuses about, oh, it was there. No, it was there because you chose to put it there.
Right.
So definitely, there would be a Lensbaby somewhere in my life for always.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like the speed of Lensbaby for digital is kind of like it was with film, where you have to slow down because you're burning through your images and you have a limited number and it's very costly. You have to make those decisions and do it at top tier quality, the best you can each time. So it's kind of a nice thing to be able to slow down today's world with digital because people are just flying through pictures so much, and have that opportunity to just take a step back and analyze what you're about to do here and make good decisions. So that's a good piece of gear to recommend, and we haven't had that on the show, so I appreciate it coming up. So that's awesome. And can you tell us about a recent or an upcoming project that you're working on or had worked on that you're really excited about?
Well, doing the Creative Live class was big. I just filmed a class for craftsy.com. Which was it's a lot different. It's on macro photography, and it was a very different experience, more of a scripted experience. So that was a good challenge. And right now I'm writing a new presentation on the art of selective focus. So that's taking my time right now.
Very cool. And Photo World will have Kathleen's links to her website, her blog, and her social media, so you can follow along with what she's doing and be able to find her work over at takingtalkpics.com. Search Kathleen in the search bar there. Her show notes will pop up, and we'll have all that for you. So before we go, Kathleen, because we're about to wrap it up here, can you share with Photo World one parting piece of guidance, and then the best way that we can get in touch with you?
Sure. My biggest piece of advice is just stop shooting for other people. Don't shoot for camera clubs. Don't shoot for instructors. Don't shoot for yourself. Like I said, your pictures are going to be stronger if you're putting more of you in your photos. Don't shoot to win contests. And if you want to do a small portion of work that's just for that, fine, put that aside. But be sure that you save some time for your own work, your own heart songs and the kind of work that makes you happy. And you can find more about me on my website. It's just KathleenClemons.com. Easy to remember.
Wonderful. And again, we'll have that on the show notes for you, but go to her website directly, KathleenClemons.com, Photo World, and enjoy her work. It is beautiful. Kathleen, I cannot thank you enough for your time today and sharing such great value. Photo World thanks you, and happy shooting.
Thank you. It was fun.